Good afternoon, everybody. Today I'm joined with Curt Marvis from QYOU Media. I'm always excited to talk to Curt because he has insights into the media landscape that many people just don't. He's a former exec at Lionsgate Entertainment, where he saw the company go through explosive growth. For the last decade or so, he's been working on a company called QYOU Media, which has really been focusing on both influencer marketing and developing social media properties and gaming properties in India. He's recently brought on someone to manage the India operations named Raj Mishra. Raj is a former bigwig at TikTok India, and he's got this goal where he's going to try to make all of their different properties in India collaborate and work towards a more direct consumer model. In this interview, we also touch on the challenges in the Canadian junior markets, where Curt believes that the stock price is just not getting the love it deserves based on everything that the company's done over the last couple of years, which, if you've been following me at all, you know is largely a product of the lack of capital flows into the Canadian junior markets. All right, everybody, enjoy the interview. Curt, thanks so much for joining us.
Steve, it's good to see you again. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has. So I want to start off talking about the general media landscape. Since we've started working together, I feel like things have actually changed quite a bit. We've got YouTube has become much more of a mainstay in everybody's homes. We've seen short video content really take off, which I know you were early on when you first started QYOU Media, which is probably over a decade now. That was the original thesis, was that people prefer the short form video content. So we've seen that explode. Then we had the actor strikes in the US, and then we've got this AI component that I'm not really sure how that all fits in. What's your sort of assessment right now of what's happening in the global media landscape?
Well, I mean, look, unfortunately, I've been doing this for so long that I remember kind of, the old days, if you will, when you'd make a movie. When I say the old days, I'm talking about 30 years ago. You'd make a movie that would go to the movie theaters. You'd then take that movie and you put it out on home video, on VHS, and then ultimately DVD and Blu-ray. You would then sell it to TV. Then it would go into reruns. And you would have kind of this cycle where a film was generating, then it would go into the library of the studio. And, you had this asset basically that was generating money over and over and over again. And we've turned into a very, very different media landscape now, where you take an entity like a Netflix, they make a piece of content, they own that content. So they pay the producer, they produce the movie or the TV series or whatever it might be, and it sits on Netflix and plays all over the world. So it's not like where you used to say, okay, well, how much are we going to sell it to Italy for? And how much are we going to sell it to Japan for? And Germany and reruns and all the rest of it. You sell it one time and that's it. And so that's created a lot of pressure on the producers in the industry. It's part of why this actors strike that you mentioned happens. It's like, how are they going to make more money that they used to make out of residuals? Then you've got the bit streamers, Disney Plus, Paramount Plus, Netflix, all the rest of that are all competing. And they're fighting, for subscriber dollars and doing, what they can to do that. And that's why you're seeing these massive losses. I mean, it blows my mind that you take a company like Disney, and Disney is what's driving their profitability right now is not their entertainment business, it's their theme parks. So the theme parks are what's driven Disney's profitability. And so you look at that, and there's all sorts of different challenges and issues there. And then finally, you've got the short form video content guys. TikTok, YouTube Shorts now, Instagram, even, Twitter, X, whatever. And the Facebook, obviously. And those are the dominant viewership hours that are being spent by anybody who's 30 years of age or younger. They spend more time on their phone, on a short form video app, watching video content than anything else. But that stuff's all perishable. It's you watch it, you scroll past it, you go to the next one, you go to the next one. So it's completely changed the economic model of how content is being monetized. And so you put that all into a bucket, and you end up with major upheaval happening. And you've got a company like ByteDance, Chinese company that owns TikTok, that's worth 3 times the value of what the Walt Disney Company is worth. mean, that would have been mind-boggling, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago. And so I think the upheaval, I mean, look, it's like anything else, right? Upheaval and change creates opportunity, but it also creates a lot of downward pressure on the established models and the established businesses. And so, what we've done, our solution is we're straddling both. We have a traditional television broadcast channel, and we have an influencer marketing agency. We just launched a mobile gaming business recently. We're straddling all of that because our belief is that TV is not going to go away. It's sort of like when home video started, everybody said movie theaters were going to go out of business. Well, last time I checked, there's still movie theaters around. So people still do that stuff, and television is going to be around for a long, long time. But these transitional time periods are times where, from our point of view, my point of view, you've got to reinvent yourself and be nimble and do new things.
It's funny. An example I just sort of thought of when you were saying that is, I remember years ago, Global here in Canada produced a TV show that they thought was going to be cost efficient, but as you know, in TV production, trying to produce a daily sort of sitcom soap opera style show is there's a lot of cost. You're dealing with unions, you're dealing with expensive equipment, expensive producers, and everything. And I remember, although it was brand new content, it was supposed to be very regional specific. It was a show about people that were talking on the GO train every day. It was called Train 48. And I remember them saying when they canceled it, reading an article that said, it costs us over $90,000 to produce each of these episodes. We could go and buy an episode of Seinfeld and put it on in that same time slot. It's going to cost us a third the amount of money, and we'll probably get higher ratings than we would producing this.
Yeah.
And just sort of thinking of that example, it kind of makes me think like, okay, the whole TV production model where you spend all this money producing this content, it kind of loses its value when you have somebody who's just, on TikTok making videos of them themselves dancing, which, that might be a 30-second video, but then you've got, 100 people who are doing it. And the next thing you know, there's 30 minutes of content. It obviously doesn't cost TikTok really anything. And they are making big bucks out of it. So it makes me wonder, is it just going to be these really big corporations that are producing that sort of long form sitcom, drama, movie content, and then we're just going to kind of be left with sort of YouTubers like myself that are sort of filling the rest of that void?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one to answer, and certainly a tough one to answer in a relatively short conversation. But I mean, look, I don't think movies go away. I don't think TV series go away. I don't think short form video content now goes away. And so they're all going to coexist. And what's going to happen is there'll be different models and different ways that you sort of monetize what happens. I mean, the studios for years now have been making less and less movies. So the studios, there's less and less movies that are going into theaters. And the movies that they are making are bigger and bigger budget movies for the theaters, because they know now that it's got to be like a tentpole, $200 million Marvel movie, or it's not going to work. So you can't put where in the old days you would have put a, edgy drama that was tailored for an older audience. You can't do that anymore and expect that you're going to make any money. So all of that stuff is now moved over to the Amazon Primes and Netflix or whatever, all the content that's there. I think in terms of the short form guys, I mean, look, that business keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger in terms of the revenue that it's generating. And, Instagram, TikTok, these guys were creating literally $1 billion and in some cases multi-billion dollar pools of money that they were putting together to have influencers create content. So they go to an influencer that's got 250,000 followers and they're saying, here's $20,000, make some content for us. So they're paying for it. They're just using a different model to do it. So I think, Look, I remember, I think I was at Lionsgate for years, and I'll never ever forget in about 2008 when I walked into the executive meeting that we had once a week, and I held up my then BlackBerry, and I said, "You guys don't understand. People are going to watch, movies and TV shows on these one day." I remember a bunch of people looked at me like, "Are you friggin' crazy? Who's going to watch a movie on their phone?" And so I think the hardest thing, the interesting thing about the media business and the big studios, in my opinion, is that they move like glaciers. They're very resistant to change. And so even though they're these creative businesses that you think would be able to pivot and do things and operate very quickly, they're actually just the opposite. They're kind of like, you've got factions. Even when moving from traditional packaged media to streaming, it was a dogfight inside the studios. When I was the president of digital, to get rights to things, to be able to sell that, they don't like to cannibalize an existing business that's producing a lot of money. So look, again, the Disneys and Viacoms and Foxes of the world are all struggling right now to figure out a model where they can make the kind of money that they made back in the heyday of cable television and home video, where you could sell this stuff over and over and over again. And the people that made that movie for $90,000 or that series for $90,000 an episode, they were creating a library. They could sell it over and over again. And those days are kind of over. So it's a period of great change for sure right now.
So you guys, obviously, your big stomping ground right now is in India. How has the media landscape in India evolved since you guys first started dabbling there to today, where you guys have a thriving business?
Well, I think every country in the world, doesn't matter whether it's India or the US or anywhere in between, the media landscape's changing in sort of the same way. So if you're an Indian kid and you're watching content in India, the phone is becoming a primary resource that you're doing that with. Again, whether you're watching a movie on it, a TV show, or a short form piece of video content. So I think we see a lot of the same things. I think one of the advantages we have is that India is a little bit behind what you would see happen here in the US. So for example, smart TVs and connected TVs, that's a massive industry and business now, and a primary revenue generating business in the US, Canada, North America, Europe, et cetera. Well, that's just starting to really get monetized in India. So part of what we feel we have as an advantage in India is we sort of are seeing some of what these trends are and what's happening from the US side, and being able to anticipate and look forward. So there was just an article this morning, actually, from BARC, which is the ratings organization in India. And it was a speech from the head guy. And what he was talking about is how the broadcasters all have to start to get connected TV data and information and count that for their advertising revenues. And that's something that, was argued about 8 years ago with Nielsen in the US. And now it's considered to be, it's like you would never think of not having that as a measurement part of your ad business. So these things will happen over time, but it's look, at the end of the day, that's why we think there's such a growth opportunity there, and why we think we can really get a lot done.
It's largely sort of the same. Would we say that there's people watching the equivalent of TikTok? My understanding is you can't have TikTok in India, but they've got their own equivalents. And I assume linear television, originally when we first started working together, it was actually growing in India. Is it still growing? Has it plateaued?
Yeah, it's still growing. It's starting to plateau in what's referred to as tier 2, tier 3 in rural India. That's really a big focus of ours. And you've still got a lot of one television households in, the less developed and poorer areas and smaller towns, et cetera. So imagine you've got a very, very small home. You've got 5 people living in it. You've got one TV. And so what happens for the TV viewership across that one screen? Now, what's happening is increasingly, as smartphones are proliferating, as bandwidth is becoming unlimited by a lot of the telephone offerings, that are out there, then whether or not the kid is taking mom and dad's smartphone or whether they have their own smartphone, they're taking that phone and, they might not even have their own bedroom. They're going somewhere else and watching their content on their phone. And the mom is probably controlling the clicker for the TV at prime time in the living room on the one TV they've got. What's happening now is that more and more of those televisions, 90% of the TVs sold in India last year were smart TVs or connected TVs. So there's going to be huge growth there as bandwidth starts to come into those territories, and that happens. So the media landscape, I would say, is the same. I would just say, go back 5-7 years from where we are today in North America, and that's probably where the shift is happening right now. I mean, we just hired as our group CEO in India the former head of TikTok India. So that's, we're big believers that that's directionally where the knowledge base needs to be to make things happen that we want to do.
So let's get into your recent hire, Raj Mishra. What's the strategy that he's looking to deploy? What's he looking to sort of do with the company in India?
Well, the reason that probably one of the top reasons we're excited about Raj, other than the fact that he's a smart guy, is that he started in the digital space with Musical.ly. And I don't know if you remember Musical.ly. Musical.ly is what we now know today as TikTok. So Musical.ly was a company that had created an app that was shooting up the charts, and every kid all over the world was using it. And Raj ran Musical.ly India. He was what they call the country manager, which country manager means CEO. So he was the country manager of Musical.ly India. ByteDance, which owns TikTok, acquired Musical.ly for about $1.2 billion. And what we now know today as TikTok was what used to be called Musical.ly. So Raj became the country manager of TikTok India, and they went from 30 employees to about 1,800 employees in about a year and a half. That's how fast it grew. And it literally the fastest growing app-based business still to this day in the history of India. And the numbers were insane in terms of the engagement rates. They had 500 million daily average users. And so Raj has the experience both with Musical.ly, which was going off the charts at that time, and then taking over TikTok, which went off the charts. He has a lot of experience in not only managing high growth businesses, but in being connected into digital growth and a youth oriented thing, which is what we've always been focused on. In addition to that, he became the chief strategy guy for ByteDance India. So before TikTok got banned in India, they were starting to roll out other products. The Chinese liked him, and so he kind of got trained by the ByteDance guys. And all of the ByteDance operation, and Netflix does this to some degree too, they use what's called the North Star model, which is a certain business model for how they create KPIs, how they manage their business, how they sort of manage each of the different segments of the business to feed each other and to create milestones and accountability really within the staff. And then they reward the staff accordingly. And he did that with with Musical.ly, and then he did that with TikTok, and then he did that on a larger scale directly with ByteDance. And that's kind of what he did for a 5-6 year period, and basically went to business school through the processes that they use. And so we're now taking, he looked at what we had and he sort of said, okay, you guys have an influencer marketing agency, you've got a broadcast channel, you've got connected TV channels, you've now got a gaming business. That's all great, but I don't really think they're working together. I don't think the people have sort of the right model that they're using to leverage everything and basically make the whole greater than the sum of the parts. You've kind of got all these parts, but they're not really doing what you're going to need to go from here up to here. And so he's been here for 1 month. Literally in 1 month, it's already begun to change the culture of the business in terms of how the business is working together. And the key for us in India, what we've always wanted to do there is get into the direct-to-consumer business. The direct-to-consumer business, if you get it right, is where, that's when you do create multi-billion-dollar assets. And so what Raj is doing is he's retooling our businesses, he's reconstructing things, and he's we're off to the races, and basically using the same model that was used at Musical.ly and TikTok to build out our business in India, and frankly, using some of the stuff that he's doing here in the US business as well.
So, just to kind of further understand that means that you guys could have your own TikTok-like app in India at some point over the coming years. That's sort of where you see that going.
Yeah, we already have launched, because we bought a casual mobile gaming company called Maxim Tech in January of this year. So we've already launched what's called Qgame Mela. Mela in Hindi means carnival, so Qgames Carnival, which is an app-based model. We're not sort of revealing numbers yet because it's only been in the market in its current form for about 5 weeks. But if I told you how many downloads we'd have, you'd probably go, really? It's a lot. And that's not because of Raj, because Raj wasn't even on board when we launched it. I mean, he came onto our board of directors initially, and then I worked on him for about 4 months. And I said, look, we've got a, $35-40 million Canadian dollar market cap. We think we should have a $400 million market cap, and then we should have $1 billion market cap. Here's all the puzzle parts. Take a look at all of these and see if you think there's a way to organize them to make that happen. And he looked at everything as a board member. We met and talked about it for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours about what he saw we needed to do. And we sat down and I said, why don't you come in and steer the ship? And so we announced him a month ago, literally just at the end of his first month, as Group CEO for our India business. So he oversees Maxim Tech, the gaming business. He oversees the channel business. He oversees the chtrbox influencer marketing business. And so what we're doing now is we're connecting all of those together so that we're pushing this thing forward to really do what we always wanted to do. But, I don't want to criticize the management that we've had previously. I'll just say I don't think we had someone with the knowledge, skill set, and experience to be able to make happen what we wanted to have happen, and we have that now. If we were talking about, not American football, but soccer, I would say we just got our Messi on the team. So, things are exciting right now in terms of having a leader who's putting things together that way.
And you guys also got chtrbox, the influencer marketing platform. How's everything going there?
chtrbox is doing really well. We actually got the largest campaign deal that chtrbox has ever had in its history about 6 weeks ago. So they had a little bit of a dip at the beginning of the year. We were getting nervous. We were getting a bit worried. I think part of it was just the economy and the economics, and things were starting to, people were pulling back on their spends. Spotify is a big client. People were backing off a little bit on what they were spending on marketing in India, and that affected the chtrbox business. But chtrbox is performing really well. It was profitable when we acquired them, and it's been profitable ever since. So chtrbox, we think can really grow. The other thing with Raj is Raj was deeply, deeply in the creator economy and the influencer business. I mean, obviously TikTok and Musical.ly are all about that. And so he has deep relationships in that world. He also has deep brand relationships. So he's already contributed to the chtrbox business. And look, it's been a tough battle for the last year and a half, 2 years in this economy. And we think 2024 is going to be the kind of breakout year for us that we had in 2021. So we think next year, I think you're going to see QYOU Media rocket in a way that hasn't happened over the last, call it 12 to 18 months.
Okay, so let's wrap it up from there. If I'm an investor watching this or I'm following the company, what sort of timelines or milestones should we be looking out for over the next year?
I think the big thing is, by the time this airs, our town hall might have aired. I would recommend for anybody who's an investor to go to our website, QYOUmedia.com, QYOUmedia.com, and watch the town hall that we're going to be doing here the day that we're recording this, listen to Raj. Raj is going to present much of what I'm talking about and talk about what his vision is, where he sees the business going. I think people should not worry or judge too much the company in Q3 that we're reporting here shortly, in Q4 of this year. Economy's tough. The strike really hurt our US business in a pretty significant way, more than we expected, frankly. And so but that's temporary and that's over now. So that hurt us in Q3. It'll hurt us a little bit in the current quarter. I think it would be wrong for them to judge anything based on that. We're already coming back. I mean, we're doing some huge campaigns right now in the U.S. business for Willy Wonka, for Call of Duty, for AC Mirage, for Ubisoft. We're Mission Impossible. We're doing major campaigns in the U.S. So I think 2024 is going to be our year. I think they should watch for what's happening. I think they should watch what's going on with the press releases, and most importantly, they should watch what's happening with Qgame Mela and the growth of the gaming business and what's going to happen for us in 2024, because that's exploding in India, and we're going to be riding that wave.
Hey, well, Curt, thanks so much for hopping on here. I always appreciate how hard you work and continue to try to find ways to make this company move forward, and I'm really excited to see some of the stuff you guys have going in India and see what Raj is able to put together over the coming year, 2024, and probably into 2025. I understand that these things don't always just happen overnight, but I'm excited and looking forward to seeing where everything goes.
Awesome. Well, Steve, if one thing about me is I don't give up. So we're going to keep pushing forward here and make things happen a lot bigger than we've even done today. So stay tuned.
Thanks, Curt.
Okay.
All right, everybody. If you enjoyed this interview, please smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Also, let me know what you think in the comment section. Thanks, everyone.